This is CGTN, China Global Television Network.
Former South African President Jacob Zuma is admitted to hospital days to his appearance in court. China undertakes to provide up to 2 billion doses of COVID-19 vaccines for global consumption. And we look at how Egyptian students are benefiting from scholarships from China. Hello and welcome to Africa Live on CGTN. I'm Mahia Mutua in Nairobi. Also coming up over the next hour. The Nigerian Central Bank's move to withdraw foreign exchange supplies to Forex Bureau operators affects their operations. And in sports, Kenyan-born American athlete Paul Chelimo aims for gold in the men's 5,000 meters final. We begin the top of the hour in South Africa, where former President Jacob Zuma has been admitted to an undisclosed hospital. In a statement, the Department of Correctional Services says the 79-year-old is undergoing a routine medical observation. As a former head of state, Zuma is treated at a military facility outside Estcourt Prison, where he is currently serving a 15-month jail sentence. Zuma snubbed a commission that is probing state corruption during his presidency. He is due to appear in court on Tuesday to face charges of corruption related to a 1999 arms deal made with French company Thales. Well, CGTN's Angelo Coppola now joins us with more from Johannesburg. Angelo, Zuma is due to appear in court in the coming days before his hospitalization. What's the latest you can tell us on his situation and the nature of ailment?
Well, look, the Correctional Services Department released that statement and they said absolutely nothing in it. It's just other than the fact that because he's an ex-president, he's entitled or has to have military treatment by the South African military healthcare operation. So that's going to take place. We don't know which hospital he's in at the moment. We also don't understand what his ailment is. But according to that statement, it appears that Zuma was in fact under normal observation, and then they realized that they needed to hospitalize him. So obviously the treatment center within the hospital can't treat what he has a problem with, and that's why he's been taken out of hospital. But bottom line really is he's appearing, as you said, on the 10th, and we don't know now what happens to that court appearance, if it gets postponed again or if he actually gets heard in a virtual environment. So we're going to have to wait and see how this develops and how his legal officials or his legal team now talk to the judge about the situation. So at the moment, undisclosed, unknown ailment that the ex-president is going through. He is 79. Obviously the treatments inside the hospital couldn't sort out the problem that he had in jail, so he's gone to that private military facility. Mahia?
Well, Angelo, I'll keep you on the line as we come to you in just a moment for another story coming out of South Africa, where President Cyril Ramaphosa has reshuffled his cabinet, making changes to key portfolios such as the Finance and Health Ministry. This is the first reshuffle of Ramaphosa's presidency since he was elected to office in 2019. The South African president says the cabinet shakeup is meant to increase the state's capacity to run the country. CGTN's Yolisa Njamela has more.
In a televised national address, President Cyril Ramaphosa told the nation that the reshuffle comes as the country is facing several challenges. These include the need to accelerate the vaccination program to overcome the COVID-19 pandemic, as well as ensuring peace and stability in the wake of the recent outbreak of violence and destruction in parts of the country. The urgency for changes in the cabinet was intensified after the security ministers were found unprepared for those violent outbreaks.
While calm has restored to the affected areas and our law enforcement agencies are working hard to bring those responsible to justice, we have acknowledged that our security services were found wanting in several respects. As part of the critical measures we are undertaking to strengthen our security services and to prevent a recurrence of these events.
In a major shake-up of the security sector, Ramaphosa axed Defense Minister Nosiviwe Mapisa-Nqakula and her state security counterpart, Ayanda Dlodlo. Dlodlo has been moved to another portfolio. Thandi Modise, former Speaker of the National Assembly, will be the new Defense Minister. The President also disbanded the State Security Ministry, moving the function to the Presidency.
This is to ensure that the country's domestic and foreign intelligence services more effectively enable the President to exercise his responsibility to safeguard the security and integrity of the nation.
Another major change is in the Health Ministry. The Deputy Health Minister, Joe Pahla, will now head that ministry. Pahla replaces Zweli Mkhize, who has resigned. Mkhize was put on special leave after being implicated in a corruption scandal involving his department.
As this administration, as this collective, we are unwavering in our determination to build a capable state, one which is ably led and which effectively serves the needs of the people of our country.
South Africa also has a new finance minister, Enoch Godongwana. He replaces Tito Mboweni, who also tendered his resignation. The president also announced an expert panel that will lead investigations into the chaos, violent outbreaks and looting that unfolded last month. Yuli Sanjamela for CGTN in Johannesburg, South Africa.
Well, following those developments, Angelo Coppola is still with us from Johannesburg. Angelo, do we know at this time what necessitated those changes made by the president to his cabinet?
Well, look, there were two key reasons given, and obviously the first one is to deal with the fallout from the arson, the looting and the unrest last month, and the failure of that security cluster ministries to actually foresee those attacks. So Ramaphosa has now taken effective political control of that intelligence portfolio, and he's put a long-time ally in Zizi Kodwa in charge. Most notably, of course, the SAPS minister, Bheki Cele, actually keeps his job. And secondly, another analyst says Ramaphosa's staunchest backers have been brought into cabinet now and given prominent portfolios. We've heard about Joe Pahla, who's now the health minister. Then there's Mondle Gungubele, who's replaced the passed away Jackson Tembu as minister in the presidency, and then Godongwana, who's the new finance minister. These are three key Ramaphosa allies, as it were, and they were very instrumental in Ramaphosa's success in the 2017 presidential campaign. So it's two-pronged: one, to deal with the fallout, and two, to reward some of Ramaphosa's allies, according to analysts. Mahia?
And finally, Angelo, how then is this reshuffle likely to assist the country manage both its current and emerging challenges?
Well, look, the responses from the commentators and analysts out there say this is really the million-dollar question. There are questions around the shuffling of those deck chairs, as it were. The new Water Affairs Minister has her hands full. The tourism sector is in trouble. And there are questions around whether the incoming minister there can get the job done. And of course, there's the new finance minister. The next 100 days, of course, are going to be critical, but bear in mind that those are political appointments, those new ministers. The real work gets done by the bureaucrats, and they haven't changed. So the reshuffle has happened. Observers and citizens are wanting to see what kind of difference it's going to make. But if the currency reaction is anything to go by, it's more of the same, because that currency was relatively flat this morning, Mahia.
All right, Angelo, thank you very much for that. CGTN's Angelo Coppola joining us live from Johannesburg. Moving on, China is set to provide up to 2 billion doses of coronavirus vaccines globally this year. The announcement was made in a written message from Chinese President Xi Jinping to a newly launched forum on COVID-19 vaccine cooperation. The first meeting was attended by a number of medical manufacturers, countries, and representatives from the United Nations. President Xi also said China would donate $100 million to the COVAX initiative, while also proposing measures on global vaccine cooperation. President Xi said China remains committed to common health for mankind and helping developing countries fight the pandemic. Our Sun Ye has more.
At the International Forum on COVID-19 Vaccine Cooperation, Chinese State Councillor Wang Yi, who presided over the forum's first meeting, said the only way for the world to escape the virus grip is through solidarity and cooperation.
Vaccines are crucial in our fight against the virus. We should make sure the vaccines get even, justifiable distribution. We should leave no country behind. We should leave no one behind. This is the key for us to beat the pandemic. This is the moral responsibility for all. For China, our efforts in vaccines assistance is never associated with any economic interest or political terms. Our one and only goal is to make it a true global public good.
A number of attendees have said ensuring vaccines to reach as many people as quickly as possible will be one of the most daunting challenges the world has ever faced, but a doable one if there's a solid plan.
I welcome the agreement signed by Sinopharm and Sinovac with COVAX, unlocking potential supplies of over 500 million doses. Overall, we need more than 11 billion doses to vaccinate 70% of the global population, a key threshold to ending the acute phase of this pandemic. This will take the largest public health effort in history.
Attendees are asking countries to do more to narrow the vaccine divide and for institutions like the World Bank to provide financial support for vaccine-related efforts. China is among the world's first to make vaccines a global public good. Ever since September of 2020, it has assisted and exported some 770 million doses of vaccines to countries across the world. And as State Councillor Wang Yi promised, it will continue to make more effective, affordable vaccines to more people in the future. Sun Ye, CGTN, Beijing.
Kenya's private sector is now set to begin importing COVID-19 vaccines. This comes after the government allowed members of the Kenya Private Sector Alliance to bring in 1 million doses through government agencies. CGTN's Wilkista Nyabwa has more on that story now.
Hardly 6 months after it launched its COVID-19 vaccine efforts, Kenya has administered just over 1.7 million vaccines to members of the public. Only about 2.4% of adults in the country are fully vaccinated. Kenya has also placed an order for 13 million doses of the Johnson & Johnson vaccine, and now it's taking yet another step to secure even more vaccines. The Ministry of Health has authorized the country's private sector to import 1 million vaccine doses.
We are likely to see increased coverage because then it means we can have more vaccine in the country, even times when the government is not able to access the vaccine through the usual mechanisms, through the country donations, through the COVAX mechanisms.
In March, Kenya's Cabinet Secretary for Health, Mutahi Kagwe, had announced that no private entity would be involved in the procurement of COVID-19 vaccines. This was to reduce the potential risk of importation of counterfeit vaccines. Now the government has set up a mechanism to ensure accountability. Under the arrangement, the private sector will secure 1 million vaccine doses, but through a government agency. This will serve as a pilot project.
I think the government has worked very hard to ensure that we have the right controls, all the way from ensuring that the vaccines that are being imported are accredited vaccines. We now have controls around who gets the license based on their capacity for the supply chain to import, to distribute, to administer.
Kenya, which has seen an upsurge in its COVID-19 infection rates in recent weeks, is looking to vaccinate a huge section of its population in coming months. Wilkista Nyabwa, CGTN.
Meanwhile, Nigeria has recorded its highest figure of daily infections from COVID-19 within the last 6 months. Data from Nigeria's Center for Disease Control shows that 747 cases were recorded in the last 24 hours. The country has been recording increasing coronavirus cases since the discovery of the Delta variant in June. Reporting from Abuja, here is CGTN's Phil Ihaza.
Most of the cases were confirmed in Lagos State as well as Akwa Ibom, Oyo, the Federal Capital Territory, Abuja, among others. The new infections are recorded mainly from states where the government placed a red alert last month. The spike in cases is occurring at a time when across the country there's an ongoing nationwide strike by the National Association of Resident Doctors, and this could further put severe strain on hospitals and other medical facilities. But officials of the country's health ministry say they are working hard to ensure the demands of the striking doctors are met so that the country can effectively manage and prevent an impending outbreak. Also, only around 1% of Nigeria's population has been vaccinated so far, as against this year's target of 40%. However, authorities announced on Monday the arrival of about 4 million doses of Moderna COVID-19 vaccine donated by the U.S. The government says it's also expecting another batch of 41 million doses of vaccines on or before the month of September from the COVAX facility, which could see it achieve around 60% of this year's vaccination target. Phil Ihaza, CGTN, Abuja.
Right, well, it's time for us to take a quick break. Still ahead on the program. Japan marks the 76th anniversary of the world's first atomic bomb attack. And we look at how Egyptian students are benefiting from scholarships from China.
How will your world change today? What happens here? What happens there? Or what you make happen for yourself? If it matters to you, it matters to us too. Your stories are the stories that need to be told. Africa Live. Find your voice.
This is the Maasai Mara, the scene of one of nature's greatest spectacles. This unbelievable sight is continuing to unfold before our very eyes. From June each year, the plains of the Mara thunder under the hooves of up to 2 million wildebeest, crossing into Kenya from Tanzania's Serengeti. But with all these players bearing their best on nature's stage, even the sideshows are bound to captivate and amaze. Join CGTN from August 9th through 18th as we take in the sights, sounds, and adventure of 2021's Mara Migration.
Now, a natural wonder of the world is currently ongoing at Kenya's renowned Maasai Mara Game Reserve. Millions of migratory animals cross from Tanzania into Kenya in a spectacle that is listed high up among the best of tourist attractions anywhere in the world. We will be bringing you a special series on the Maasai Mara migration in both our TV and digital platforms. For more on what to expect, we're now joined live by Daniel Plafka. Daniel, the Maasai Mara migration has been happening for many decades. How has COVID-19 affected this year's wildebeest migration?
You're quite right, Mahia. It has been going on since time immemorial. Hordes and hordes of wildebeest streaming northward from Tanzania into Kenya's Maasai Mara, and it's attracted a great deal of attention from visitors around the world. Last year, of course, was a year like none has been seen in a long time. COVID-19 paralyzing international travel, discouraging many foreign visitors from coming, and drawing up with it a great portion of the income that Kenya's tourism sector depends on each year when the wildebeest migration comes around. Last year, many of the hotels in the area were empty, having far-reaching economic impact across the sector as a whole, and many of the auxiliary aspects of the economy that also depend on visitors. The economic impact of the COVID-19 pandemic on the Maasai Mara's tourism sector is one of the many topics that we'll be covering in our upcoming special series, and we look forward to sharing some of the stories of those who have been affected and some of the stories of hope of those who are now looking to bounce back.
Indeed, we will be looking forward to it. But Daniel, tourism isn't the only economic activity in the Mara. What other issues can viewers look forward to in your special series?
You're absolutely right. Times are changing in the Mara, and while tourism continues to be a big earner for many who call the region home, other elements of the economy are now coming to the fore. Livestock rearing has long been an important economic activity for the pastoralist communities that live in that area, but lately commercialization and upscaling in that sector has created some interesting dynamics between domestic herd animals like goats and cows and increasing competition with wild herbivores like zebras and wildebeest. During our reporting, we learned about some of the fascinating mitigation methods that wildlife conservation authorities have come up with to manage and balance some of those conflicting interests. And we do encourage our viewers to tune in on CGTN Africa's digital platforms to get a taste of that action. Agriculture, Mahia, is another emerging sector of the Maasai Mara's economy. Climate change, of course, has been changing weather patterns in the area, bringing increased rainfall and making some of those traditionally dry and arid lands farmable for the first time in many years. Of course, that also means that now crops are available and ripe for the picking from any opportunistic wildlife, especially elephants, who may choose to wander off the reserve to take some gleaning from the newly emerging fields. We looked at some of the elephant-human conflict mitigation measures that local authorities and NGOs are putting into place and saw what kind of lessons can be learned from Kenya's long history of managing human-wildlife conflict by other countries overseas.
All right, Daniel, thank you very much for speaking to us. Daniel Plavka speaking ahead of the upcoming special series on the migration at the Maasai Mara. Don't be sure to miss it. Moving on, Japan is marking the 76th anniversary of the world's first atomic bomb attack that destroyed the cities of Hiroshima and Nagasaki. Prime Minister Yoshihide Suga took part in a memorial on Friday, also attended by survivors, relatives, and foreign dignitaries. The 1945 nuclear attack led to the surrender of Japan and the end of World War II, but also killed hundreds of thousands of people. Suga said the government would continue to promote comprehensive support measures for the survivors. The mayor of Hiroshima also called on all nations to work together to promote the total abolition of nuclear weapons. Well, Hiroshima Day reminds the world of the utter devastation nuclear weapons can bring. August 6, 1945 was the first time they were used in conflict. Rory Cohen looks back at how their impact forced the end of World War II.
In July 1945, Germany had surrendered and warfare in Europe had ended. However, with fascist Japan refusing to submit to the Allies' strict terms, the US decided to leave them with little other choice. On August 6th, the US dropped an atomic bomb, known as Little Boy, on Hiroshima, an important Japanese army base and city with a population of about 320,000 at the time. The bomb detonated with the force of more than 15,000 tons of TNT, engulfing the city in a blinding flash of heat and light. 80,000 people are thought to have died instantly. 3 days later, the US dropped a second bomb, known as Fat Man, this time on the city of Nagasaki. The twin bombings are still debated to this day. Many argue they were extreme and unnecessary. Others believe it was the only way to get Japan to unconditionally surrender. That was the then US President Harry Truman's argument. Whatever the case may be, they killed about 200,000 people in total and left many more to endure horrendous injuries for the rest of their lives. The Allies had been well aware of Japanese atrocities during the war. Over the preceding decade, Japan attacked nearly all its Asian neighbours, committing numerous war crimes in the process. The Nanjing Massacre in China and the Bataan Death March in the Philippines, to name a couple. It's estimated that Japanese aggression caused up to 14 million deaths across the continent, through massacres, human experimentations, starvation and forced labour. After Japan's surrender, many of its high-ranking officers and government officials were later found guilty of genocide and war crimes, and were executed. Despite this, the country honours 14 of them at the Yasukuni Shrine in Tokyo.
Elsewhere, Greece is reporting multiple wildfires. Hundreds of firefighters have been deployed on the large island of Evia, where villages are being evacuated. Evangelos Sipsas has more from Evia.
Fires continue to rage in many parts of Greece for the third straight day. Here on the island of Evia, fires were fueled by new blazes overnight, despite the efforts of hundreds of firefighters to bring them under control. Thousands of hectares of land have been burned and continue to burn, while houses and properties have also been ravaged by the flames. In Evia, around 12 villages in the island's north had to be evacuated in the early hours of Thursday as a fire that started earlier this week near the seaside village of Limni broke up into separate fronts, spreading both further inland and down the coast. Hundreds of firefighters, volunteers, and army personnel with trucks have been mobilized to try to bring the fires under control before they threaten more villages in the area. The worst damage so far appears to be concentrated in the seaside village of Rovies, where dozens of residents and holidaymakers had to be evacuated by sea on Wednesday. In the meantime, help arrived on Thursday from France, Sweden, and Cyprus as the authorities announced new measures to battle the flames. But locals and volunteers on the scene here are angry. They believe Greek authorities did not act fast enough or deploy adequate firefighting planes and helicopters. In the last 24 hours, the fire brigade has tackled around 100 wildfires, including one in ancient Olympia, site of the original Olympic Games, which currently is out of danger. But here on the island of Evia, the battle continues as winds pick up and temperatures remain around 40 degrees Celsius as the country suffers from the latest extreme weather event to hit southern Europe. Evangelos Ipsas from Evia, Greece for CGTN.
And here in Africa, Algeria has been facing a heat wave since early July. Temperatures in parts of the North African country reached up to 51 degrees Celsius last month. The high temperatures have continued, forcing citizens to constantly seek ways to avoid exposure to the sun. Here is how some Algerians are dealing with the rising temperatures.
The heat wave may be caused by global warming, but the big problem is the suffering of citizens from electricity cuts during periods of rising heat, as well as the quarantine that prevents the movement of citizens.
Personally, this wave of intense heat obliged me to move in the evening and at night only. The rest of the day, I hid with my family at home. I'm sure that the consumption of electricity has increased due to the use of cooling devices.
Meanwhile, in Uganda, environmentalists are encouraging people to develop special personal connections with trees and treat them just like pets. This is part of an effort to get trees to grow to full size through a Pet a Tree campaign. Campaigners are worried that the country is losing most of its forest cover to loggers. CGTN's Isabel Nakiria now reports.
Campaigners in Uganda are growing pet trees. They are concerned many trees planted are not well taken care of and end up dying. Pet a Tree campaigners now believe creating a special bond with trees gives one the responsibility of ensuring it grows.
If we can have all friends in animals, which is part of wildlife, trees are part of wildlife as well. Even when they are silent, we think that they are real good friends to us for a lot of reasons. They give us fresh air, they help in mitigating and reversing climate change. So I think they are underrated.
There's concern that the country is losing most of its indigenous tree species because of their medicinal values. Some of these trees are now endangered and others are becoming extinct. Uganda's tree cover is just 12% and campaigners want to increase this to 24% by 2040. Most of the trees are lost to wood fuel and construction. Foresters here are encouraging developing relationship with trees by naming them and taking care of them as pets till they grow in order to improve the tree cover.
So we are propagating so many of these seedlings so that people can take this back home and plant and regain what was once ours. Because some of these trees are just endemic or they can only be found here in Uganda. So it is very important that we always preserve them.
The Pet a Tree campaign is hoping to use cultural ceremonies like marriages, birthdays and school clubs to promote the planting of more trees. Their goal is to grow at least 1 million trees annually with the hope of reversing the effects of climate change. Isabel Nakiria, CGTN, Entebbe, Uganda.
Right, and here is a quick reminder of our top stories on Africa Live. In South Africa, former President Jacob Zuma has been admitted to an undisclosed hospital. In a statement, the Department of Correctional Services says the 79-year-old is undergoing a routine medical observation. As a former head of state, Zuma is treated at a military facility outside Estcourt Prison, where he is currently serving a 15-month jail sentence. Elsewhere, China is set to provide up to 2 billion doses of coronavirus vaccines globally this year. The announcement was made in a written message from Chinese President Xi Jinping to a newly launched forum on COVID-19 vaccine cooperation. President Xi also said China would donate $100 million to the COVAX initiative, while also proposing measures on global vaccine cooperation. And Japan is marking the 76th anniversary of the world's first atomic bomb attack that destroyed the cities of Hiroshima and Nagasaki. Prime Minister Yoshihide Suga took part in a memorial on Friday, also attended by survivors, relatives, and foreign dignitaries. The 1945 nuclear attack led to the surrender of Japan and the end of World War II, but also killed hundreds of thousands of people. And those are your top stories. Here's what's coming up in the business. Nigeria's central bank's move to withdraw foreign exchange supplies to Forex Bureau operators affects their operations.
You don't find the stories of North Africa by sitting on the sidelines. You've got to get out, go there, and you'll find them. In the bazaars of Casablanca, among the crowds in Cairo,
who come to visit Cairo, the ancient capital of Egypt.
Along the waters of the Nile, along the sands of the Sahara. No one else will take you where we can in North Africa. No one else will show you what it's all about. CGTN, see the difference.
Africa Live. Find your voice.
Time for the business. Forex Bureau operators in Nigeria are feeling the impact of the central bank's move to withdraw their foreign exchange supplies. The Apex Bank took the step after it accused operators of inflating rates and in some cases engaging in money laundering. With the details, here is CGTN's Kelechi Emekalam.
BDC operator Tunde Adetoba has been in the business for 8 years now. He's one of over 5,000 licensed operators who purchase forex from the central bank and retail to end users. But operators like Tunde now have to rely on other sources as direct supply from the Apex Bank has been cut off.
CBN allocation of foreign exchange is just one part of the business. So other parts of the business are going on, even though the intervention from CBN over the time has formed a major chunk of the business. But for licensed BDC operators, they can carry on their normal business even without allocation from central bank. For any operator that has been selling within the allowable limit, it will continue to trade from other sources and they continue to be in business.
BDCs were set up to receive a weekly forex supply from the central bank for onward sale to end users who need $5,000 or less. But the Apex Bank accuses them of illegally trading forex into millions of dollars, way beyond their limits. Some are even suspected of terrorism sponsorship. This has also affected the registration of thousands of other prospects who'd hope to start up their own BDC business.
The activities are making forex regime unmanageable by CBN, and it's their primary mandate. When the price of these currencies are not steady, they are going up and down, and people that are meant to get what are complaining that they are not getting it, they have to act because they're losing control of the economy, the monetary control of the economy. So you cannot say to them to fold their hands and watch what was going on to continue. And also don't forget, there were other charges about money laundering and terrorism financing and all kinds of other things. Once these things come to notice, you are expected to take action.
What's more, there are concerns that the dollarization is putting a strain on the naira and the economy at large.
To deal with the appetite of our people to dollarize our economy, people are preferring to hold dollar rather than to hold naira. And this is part of the speculative activities around the forex. So we need to find a way to dampen the appetite for dollar, to diversify the supply base of this dollar by diversifying the economy. We also need to manage the cost.
Nigeria is an import-driven country relying heavily on forex. Crude oil generates 90% of the nation's foreign earnings, not enough to cater to the high demand. With foreign investments and diaspora remittances experiencing a low, economic watchers advise government to intensify diversification efforts in order to ramp up forex earnings. Kelechi Emekalam, CGTN Abuja, Nigeria.
Zimbabwe has announced plans to clear unprocessed foreign currency allocations from central bank-run auctions within the next 45 days. Traders and businesses estimate that about $200 million is outstanding. Last year, the central bank introduced a weekly foreign currency auction to improve access to the dollar. However, some traders say it currently takes up to 7 weeks for the winning bidder to receive the quota, which is disrupting companies' operations. The Zimbabwe dollar has been trading from 82 to 85 to the US dollar since January, leading to accusations by business leaders that authorities were fixing the exchange rate. The central bank has denied the accusations. Elsewhere, Egypt is hosting the 9th edition of the Africa Food Manufacturing Exhibition that is taking place in the capital, Cairo. Some 140 exhibitors from 16 countries are showcasing their products in the event that seeks to boost the continent's supply chains in the food and beverage, packaging and logistics sectors. CGTN's Yasser Hakim attended the event and filed this report.
Traders and manufacturers in the food industry have gathered in Cairo to participate at the 3-day exhibition that has offered networking and opened up business opportunities in the past. But for a second consecutive year, travel restrictions caused by the COVID-19 pandemic have prevented most African companies from attending the fair. However, there were visitors from the continent who have still managed to turn up for the event.
I'm here in this exhibition to look for new ideas and new machineries, more especially milling machines for the agricultural product, and to exchange ideas, to see new things in terms of packaging, in terms of other new products. The exhibition is a very good one. Despite the issue of the COVID pandemic, we are able to come for the exhibition, and a lot of investment is being decided right now in this exhibition, because it gives opportunity for the suppliers and the buyers to have a meet, to have discussions, and to negotiate.
Intra-African trade is still below expectations, and the event is viewed as one of the key fairs to increase business in the continent. Already, Egypt is playing a major role in production and has become an export hub for food industries in the Middle East and Africa.
We are focusing very much on the African market in Arab countries. We export to Saudi Arabia, to Jordan, and we have begun exporting to Nigeria and Kenya. The National Export Council is giving a lot of support, especially logistics, by easing transportation to African countries, and covers 50% of the transport, or even 100% in some cases. The only hurdle so far is the ability to transfer money between producers and clients, and I believe states are trying to solve this issue now.
The exhibition is also trying to help resolve a drawback in the continent's food industry.
Most of these components that people are exhibiting or targeting to exhibit at the show are produced in Europe and Asia, not in Africa. So what we are trying to do is to get this technology from Asia and Europe and start implementing it in Egypt and African market.
Chinese companies, which have been regular participants in the conference, were largely absent due to COVID-19 travel restrictions. Nonetheless, there's still demand for Chinese products by visitors attending the three-day event.
I would always prefer to source local ingredients for cost reasons and for logistics reasons. But yeah, we've been dealing with Chinese companies since 10 years now. We've bought several packaging lines and several processing lines from 4 or 3 Chinese companies. So yeah, we've been dealing with Chinese companies for a while.
Sudan is interested to deal with 2 major markets, Egypt, China and India. They have suitable technology for suitable price for Sudan and Africa in general. The Sudan delegate is looking to import or to buy so many equipment for food manufacturing and packaging in Sudan. So there is such a very big important area that is the packaging of fruits and vegetables, which Sudan is very famous with it.
Investors hope with the rollout of the COVID-19 vaccines, this will help intra-African trade pick up very soon. And this will allow the African continent to receive a supply of food products badly needed in these nations. Yasser Hakim for CGTN, Cairo.
Right, still ahead on Africa Live. We look at how Egyptian students are benefiting from scholarships from China.
You're watching breaking news on CGTN.
Welcome to the world today on CGTN.
Africa Live. Find your voice.
Welcome back. Now, Nigeria is set to receive $125 million to boost its education sector. The funds are part of the $5 billion raised at the Global Educational Summit recently held in the UK. The summit raised money for 90 countries. President Muhammadu Buhari, who attended the event, pledged to increase Nigeria's education budget by 50% over the next 2 years. Now, many students from all across Africa have hugely benefited from scholarships offered by China. Egypt is one of the first countries that established scholarships and exchange of student programs with China. In recent years, Beijing has boosted the number of scholarships available for Egyptian students. In 2019, for example, Egypt had nearly 2,000 students benefiting and studying in Chinese universities. Adel Makhroui has more details.
When he graduated, Ahmed Khalil was among the top students in Asyut University's business school in Egypt. As a teaching assistant who earned his master's degree, Ahmed began to prepare for his PhD to pursue a successful teaching career. To him, China was the best place to continue his postgraduate studies.
I looked and applied for scholarships in many countries, and I got accepted in several, but I preferred China. It is a trade giant, which is the field of my research. That can give me access to many cases to study. I can also work properly on trade statistics. Moreover, the application procedures are simple. There are several protocols between Egyptian and Chinese universities, which makes the process easy.
He benefited from a 2016 MOU between Egypt and China that offers full scholarships with living expenses for 400 Egyptian graduate students, valid until 2020. After staying in China for 6 months in 2019, the COVID-19 pandemic interrupted his degree course. Yet Ahmed says he gained a lot of experience during that period.
I benefited a lot in that limited time. In Egypt, the methods of education are different. In China, they focus on how to benefit from the information rather than only to acquire knowledge. I've seen how professors deal with students there, and I'll try to apply that attitude. I got exposed to many cultures and nationalities there, which has widened my scope of understanding the world.
Ahmed's teaching style changed, which in turn is affecting dozens of students at his university. Because of the pandemic, it is still not clear when he will go back to continue his research. In the meantime, he's practicing Mandarin to enhance his communication skills with his friends and colleagues. Besides his university life exposure, Ahmed says his experience in China changed his lifestyle.
I struggled first with the food, but after some time, I got used to it. Their dishes are such healthier than Egyptian ones, which use a lot of fat. I was 96 kilograms when I traveled. I came back 81 kilograms. Like them, I stopped eating at 7 in the evening. I began playing sports daily. In China, you get surrounded by areas designated for practicing sports.
In 2019, Egypt had nearly 2,000 students in China, studying in all fields. Education and cultural cooperation between the two nations is exemplary. It started in 1931, and after the foundation of the People's Republic of China, it began developing some more and even further in 1955. Yet since 2014 and 2016, when the presidents of the two countries exchange visits, education cooperation has developed greatly, leading to the establishment of the first Chinese university in Egypt, the Middle East and Africa. Adil Mahroui, CGTN, Cairo.
Right, and here's what's ahead in our sports segment.